narcissists have all types of supplies, and this is heavily dependent on the type of narcissist they are, but it'll even change during the relationship you're in with them. You'll see it from the beginning to the end how they have a more narcissistic form of supply, like a what I would say as a positive form of supply for them, where they're idealizing you in the beginning. They see you as they have a very black and white pattern style of thinking, and in the beginning they're idealizing you. They think you're their like ideal partner. But as time goes on, and through no fault of your own, the narcissist starts to get sadistic. They start to want to hurt you. They want to bring you down because the narcissist can't see beyond their own inner mechanisms, their own inner workings. You and I, we have the ability to empathize and put ourselves in the shoes of other people. We can look at another person and say, "Wow, that person's eyes are getting watery. I think they're feeling distressed or they're about to cry." You'll notice this failure to recognize other people's facial recognitions in a narcissist. They have many masks, but they've gotten very good at putting up this facade of sanity. But you'll catch glimpses of their how like distorted their mind really is when you do something as simple as, like, I have an example when me and the narcissist were checking into a hotel, and just there's it's so they were so gullible, and you could tell that the person behind the counter was having like a hard time. I think she was new at her job, and the narcissist was getting mad. But you could obviously tell that it was like you could see the distress in her face, that she wasn't like being lazy or something like that. But the narcissist takes it as a personal attack because it's upsetting them. It's taking longer for them. It's a very they don't see beyond their face, right? Like beyond their own inner workings. They're not able to look at that person and see, okay, this person, it looks like they're new at their job, that's why they're not very analytical, smart thinkers, and that's why it's hard to get through to them and nearly impossible. Even the self-aware narcissists are like that. So the narcissist can't see beyond their own their own perceptions of reality, and once, for whatever reason, once whatever you're doing in the real world, like I said in the beginning, they're idealizing you, and now their impossible fantasies that they've made up in their own head, you're not living up to them because it's not possible. It's impossible to be a perfect person for someone. So the relationship is going on. They are starting to lose the illusion of the idealized illusion of you, and now reality is not, isn't congruent with the fantasy in their head. So now this is why they start attacking you. This is why they start belittling you, and and at some points, if you really bother them, if whatever actions you're doing are very different from the fantasy in their head, that's why they have to discard you. That's why they have to get rid of you, and sometimes even like humiliate you, and the very unfortunate cases where they even have to unalive you because your existence is it's affecting their own fantasy world. And that's a very precious thing to the narcissist because, as you may know, they created that false self to protect themselves from that horrific person. They don't want to self-reflect and look at who they are deep down. That's why they live in that fantasy world. That's why they oscillate and go back and forth from being very grandiose and then being down in the dumps. They're always fighting with the outer world. And in essence, the narcissist kind of poisons us to think that way too. We start to, and sometimes we kind of go into the relationship that way as well, but we start to kind of regulate ourselves through the narcissist. And as you can probably tell, trying to regulate yourself through someone like a narcissist is going to just be chaos and heartache. The narcissist just is looking for supply. They don't care who or what they get it from. This is why they hate children, because children, all the attention is on the child. the child isn't really able to like give them supply of any form, right? Children are just kids are gonna be kids, right? And they aren't gonna praise adults really. They aren't gonna they a child really does nothing for a narcissist. The only time a narcissist might want a child, it's hard. I don't even want to say they like children, but the only time a narcissist will maybe even put up with a child in their eyes is when it's their kids. But then it's just to abuse them. They use them as forms of supply. They love it because they can boss them around and they have to comply with what the narcissist says. The narcissist. This is why, like after they discarded you, they can even go to like a supply that seems like way, but and no disrespect to anyone else that has to be fall victim to the narcissist, but that's why the next supply can sometimes be like uglier than you, poorer than you, whatever than you, and you're sitting there thinking like, what does that person have that I don't have? Well, first of all, it's that they aren't aware of the narcissist's tricks, right? You're starting to wake up, and the narcissist doesn't like that. But it's also the fact that the narcissist doesn't care. Like I said, they're not looking and judging people like from the outer perspective. They just want the supply for themselves, and they create a fantasy. They can look at someone that to us maybe looks like, oh, that person's nothing special about them, but then the narcissist creates the fantasy in their head, and that's all that matters. That's why they can go to the next person and they can be ugly, poor, whatever, and it doesn't matter to the narcissist because the narcissist just draws in supply wherever they can. And the important thing to realize here is now that you know the narcissist thinks this way, and you shouldn't take it so personally. The narcissist is gonna do what they're gonna do. It's just the fact that we've invested so much of ourselves. It's the fact that we believe that the narcissist was a normal person, and that really scarred us emotionally. But I know everyone is different, and especially if you're in the initial stages of being traumatized and discarded by the narcissist, it's very hard to look at it from this clear perspective. But once you start to realize that the narcissist gets supply, I've even heard that the narcissist can sometimes even get supply, like from inanimate objects, right? Like from a new car or something. Like and everyone does that, right? We all like new things, fancy things. But the narcissist does it to like a more of an extreme. That's why a lot of them are very superficial, and to them, you giving them a gift is more important than you giving them love and like your genuine love and attention, right? Stop taking it so hard. Realize that the narcissist, you weren't the first person the narcissist did this to, and unfortunately, you're not going to be the last. It really wasn't your fault, and we end up see the narcissist did what they did, and they really don't care. Like I said, we're interchangeable to them. But we end up torturing ourselves and we end up ruminating on it longer than we should because we confuse it. We confuse it in like for a normal relationship, and it also has to do with the fact that how our minds work. And it just forget about how we've been traumatized and all the BS we've gone through with a narcissist. Even in past relationships, you've probably noticed that it's hard to let go even of like a non-narcissistic ex because this is how your body processes your thoughts and emotions. So you're kind of sitting there, and because it's you, all these emotions and all this trauma is new, even with a non-narcissistic ex, your body starts feeling all these emotions, and that triggers like a memory, whether it's like maybe like a movie starts playing in your head, or you start having these like verbal conversations with yourself. But if you really sit there and observe yourself, it's why I push meditation so hard on people. But your body first elicits some kind of emotional reaction, and then that generates a thought, an internal image, something like that. And because it's so fresh, because what the narcissist did to us was so damaging, it was like no other pain before, and because it's still new, that's why we keep ruminating on them. That's why we can't stop thinking about them, but you just have to find ways, to time always helps, but you have to find ways to realize that those emotions aren't even really valid. Yes, it was a very traumatic experience. Yes, it was very painful. But I know for me personally, just understanding that I was just another, that I didn't take it personally, that I was just another recycled supply for the narcissist, it made it much easier to reconcile with what happened. And it didn't, it stopped me from taking it on such a deep spiritual, emotional level and realizing that just fell victim to some crazy person, right? Like if a schizophrenic person came up to you and said, "You're weird and ugly," I'd be annoyed or something, but I wouldn't take it personally because I know this person isn't mentally healthy. They're not perceiving reality correctly, and that's what the narcissist is. They aren't perceiving reality correctly. So and I know it's tough sometimes, but you shouldn't take it so personally.